After trying out the Sony A1, this is the camera I've been waiting for. The A7RV is Sony's brand new camera with 61 megapixels, 8K video, and AI-based autofocus. This could well be my next camera for many years. I'm trying it out for 2 weeks. Sony's very kindly sent me the camera. I really appreciate it. But instead of testing it out in a boring way in this office, taking some pictures of leaves like I did in the last video, I'm going to reintroduce you to someone who featured on this channel in 2018 and 2019. Let's jump in the car and go and test out this brand new camera.
Hello, my name is Sebastian Job. I'm a professional sim racer for Rebel Racing Esports. You may recognise me from a couple of George's videos on his channel called the Racer series. Shot a few years ago, basically me racing in Formula Ford. But yeah, this is audio straight from the camera. So we're kind of testing it out, see how it sounds, and then you should see a couple of shots of me in a few moments. So since the last video, which was the Mexico special, I've been doing a lot more sim racing basically. I won the 2020 Porsche Tagway Esports Super Cup, and recently I was announced as a new F1 sim test driver for Rebel Racing. So I'm basically helping with the F1 team with their simulator work at the factory. Hopes in the future are more sim racing, more sim work, and hopefully some real life racing, but it's all about budget really, so we'll see how that goes, but I'm working on it. So yeah, thanks for coming down, and I will see you soon.
So the first thing I want to talk about is the body and the ergonomics of this camera. If you've used a Sony camera before, you're going to be very familiar with the button placement, how everything looks, the layout of the screen and everything around it hasn't really changed for so many years. And it works. It just works how you want to. Everyone who's used a Sony camera before will know what it's like. It's all very familiar, which is great if you're from the Sony ecosystem. I'm not, so I had to learn it from my GH5, but it's actually pretty similar. Once you use it for a day or two, you're pretty much there. The main upgrade with the ergonomics and the camera itself is 100% the screen that I'm looking at right now, which I can flip around and see what I'm recording. It's just a game changer. Why the A1 doesn't have this, I have no idea. This is what the A1 is missing. If the A1 had this flippy screen, it would be untouchable in terms of hybrid cameras. This camera with the flippy screen just opens up a whole nother world of possibilities when it comes to filming yourself, filming out in the field, and just more video opportunities. And that's what I think makes it more of a hybrid camera rather than a stills first. I know it's the A7RV, which is meant for resolution apparently, and so this is catered more towards photographers. But the fact that we've now got this flippy screen, which photographers would probably never normally use if you're behind the camera, this just makes it such a much more complete package, and any future cameras should have this articulating screen. There's literally no reason why they shouldn't put it on every single camera that comes out from Sony. So now we've covered the body and lens, let's talk about the AI AF. It's probably what makes this camera #1 in the world at the moment. And I know that's going to be a hot topic of discussion, but the fact that this has AI-based intelligence to help you understand and focus properly and compose your shots is just next level. You can see in this example video they've put on their website, you can see that the A7RV is tracking exactly where it thinks the body is. Even when you turn away, it's still following your eye, and it will track your eye perfectly, and then when you turn around, it will still be sharp in focus. It also works when you have two people in shot, and in my experience, the first person that's gone into that shot will stay sharp and it will stay on that person. If another person comes in and tries to interrupt the shot, it will ignore them and it will stay in front on that person that was in there in the first place. And the fact it will calculate where your body is and what posture you have, where your head is, where your eye is, and this will work for not only people, it'll work for animals, birds, planes, cars, trains, I think as well, and insects. That is ridiculous. I mean, you've covered everything that I could think of in terms of a moving subject that you'll ever need for photography. So the fact that's available is incredible. Now, because this is the A7RV, let's talk about the stills. That's probably the main reason why people buy A7R cameras, is because of the resolution. And obviously, this being a 61 megapixel camera, it is the highest resolution camera that Sony make. So in short, you get big quality, but you also get gigantic file sizes. For one Sony ARW image, you get 126.5 megabytes for that file. And for the JPEGs, it's not much better, it's 32.8. But that is uncompressed RAW and JPEG extra fine. So they're still pretty decent chunky file sizes, but you retain all of that information from your 61 megapixel file. Also, here's a quick ISO test that I did. Personally, I think everything up till 12,800 is definitely usable. Once you go over this value, you can of course still use it, but it looks to be getting a bit of a green tinge and losing its clarity. Apart from that, it looks pretty good. The main reason why I was interested in this camera was the AI autofocus and the video specs in this camera. The AI autofocus is not available in any other Sony camera, apart from that new vlogging camera they put out. I can't remember what it was called, but that came out during the process of me having this camera. This camera is an amazing video camera, and I am a video first person, and then I'll try and do stills alongside that. The fact that this camera is normally a stills camera, but it's now got amazing video capabilities, is incredible. I love the fact that you can shoot now in 8K, 25 FPS. It's fantastic. It's very sharp and it's fantastic until you get some motion and fast motion in your shots, which will then be pretty much unusable because of the rolling shutter. Rolling shutter is not great on this camera. The sensor isn't as fast as the A1, but it's a bigger megapixel count, which means there's more information to process. And when you're moving it about, it can't process it in enough time. And so you get results like this, which are complete jelly, and you can't use them. In 4K 25 and 4K 50, the rolling shutter is still there, but it's not as bad, and I think it's definitely usable for most use cases. Even in fast motion situations, I was shooting for Getty Images, their sport department, the other week, and I covered the England men's football team training at Spurs, and even tracking some of the shots of the players warming up and practicing on the pitch at Spurs. The rolling shutter wasn't noticeable at all, and I was panning pretty fast trying to follow the ball. I was in at 200mm. We'll get onto the sharpness in a second, but I was tracking and it was fine. There was no rolling shutter in 4K, but in 8K, I definitely wouldn't have done it in 8K because, yeah, it's pretty unusable. But if you're just doing stuff like this, you can do it in 8K, it'll be fine. You can play around with the AF sensitivity and it can be really fast or really slow. I had it in the middle and I wasn't a massive fan of it, so I've changed it to the second fastest setting just to see what the difference was. And it looks pretty good from my perspective, so you shouldn't worry about it not tracking you, because the AI autofocus and the speed of this AF, it's got to be the best autofocus I've ever used in any camera. Way better than this GH5, I can tell you. This GH5 is showing its age now when you see the technology that's available in the Sony cameras today. Also, I've been testing out this variable ND filter where you can slide all the way from ND2 to ND400. I think that's pretty crazy. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in buying one of these. I'm looking at making some and getting some on Amazon for next day delivery. If you're interested, let me know and I can make it happen. I'm testing them at the moment, and let me tell you, it's been an absolute game changer and lifesaver. Having one filter instead of having 8 is incredible. Back to the video. Now let's talk about sharpness. This is the topic that I wanted to talk about. So I had the 70-200 lens. The Mark 1 was sent to me on this camera. And during the England training session and the Ukraine training session, I was mostly shooting at 200mm, and the video was not really that sharp. It could do with a helping hand. I gave it a helping hand. You could do a little bit of sharpening in post and it was fine, but I wanted it to be pin sharp straight out the box. And also I got to do a shoot the other day doing stills for Getty, and Erling Haaland was at Nighttown London, and I used this camera exclusively with the GH5, 70-200 on the Sony A7RV, and I had my 24-70 on the GH5, so I had both angles covered. My GH5 was pin sharp 99% of the time. The A7RV was not sharp 95% of the time. I binned off like literally I put up about 5-6 pictures on the Getty website because everything else wasn't sharp, which was really disappointing because I got some nice stuff and I couldn't put it on because it wasn't sharp. So by a process of elimination, I realized it was either the lens or the body. I was pretty sure it wasn't the body, so I went out and got one of these. This is the Sony A7RV G Master Mark II lens, and I went out and purchased it to try it out on this camera. And when I tell you this is an amazing lens, I will say it is the sharpest lens I've ever used in any camera ever. It's amazing. So I worked out that it was in fact the Mark I lens, which is a couple of years old. I don't know whether it just needs a calibration or some sort of TLC from Sony. I have let them know, but that's just my experience with the Mark I. It wasn't that sharp. But the Mark II, 100% amazing lens. I'm shooting on it right now. This is in 4K 25. It's an amazing lens. I really, really recommend it. Anyone in the comments who's got a Mark I, let me know if yours is sharp at 200mm or if this just needs a bit of calibration. I'm pretty sure that might be the case. And to show you the comparison between the Mark I and the Mark II, here's a very simple shot I did of my dog straight out the camera. It's a little bit underexposed, but you can see the detail and the sharpness compared to the Mark I and the Mark II. That is ridiculous. The amount of detail you can see around his eye, on the hairs around his eye, that's what you expect from a Sony lens. Pin sharp, amazing detail. You can even see my reflection in his eyeball taking a picture. That's just next level. Additional bit of information. Here's my 70-200 on my GH5 versus the 70-200 on the A7RV. Just look at the size comparison. I forgot how handy it is to have a GH5 and a Micro Four Thirds form factor. And it's so small and so portable, and it shoots great imagery in something so portable. I was thinking of getting rid of my GH5, but I actually think I'm going to keep it because it's so reliable and so good, especially when it comes to video. So things to improve. So I've been through all the list of the amazing things with the A7RV. However, there are things that could be improved on this camera. Number one is the rolling shutter. That's probably my biggest pet peeve with this camera. And I understand the technicalities behind it. You've got a massive 61 megapixel sensor. You can't have amazing rolling shutter with a sensor that big unless you put in the fastest, best sensor in the world, like the A1. And that will cost another £2,500 just for the body. This camera body only is £4,000, which is still a sizable chunk of money. And I would expect a little bit better performance in terms of rolling shutter for me personally, but that's just me being picky. In terms of battery life, I think the battery could be improved, but I understand a lot of people might be using a battery grip, and so you're getting another couple of batteries in there and extending your battery life for a whole day. I was getting it through a couple of hours at least at filming. I think around 2 to 3 hours was what I was getting when I was shooting in 4K. Obviously in 8K, you're going to eat up more battery life. But I know one of the guys at Getty who's also tried this camera out in the video department said the one thing it is missing is 4K 120. That's the biggest thing that this camera is missing alongside the decent rolling shutter. I feel like 4K 120 would make this the perfect camera. And I guess they have to leave something out, otherwise this is better than the A1 when it comes to stills. It's better in terms of focusing. It would be pretty much on par with no rolling shutter and 4K 120 compared to the A7S III. So I feel like they're having to hold back a little bit because I don't want to put everything into a camera because you'll never have the perfect camera. And so my overall thoughts with this camera, I am 99% sure that I'm going to buy this camera and use it as my main camera. That's how impressed I am with it. And even though it's not really a video camera, it's meant to be a stills camera, it's unbelievable in terms of the whole package. I need to shoot great video and I need to shoot great stills. And for me, the only camera that has been able to do that is the A7RV and the A1. And I don't want the A1 because you haven't got a flippy screen and all these other things. So I feel like I need to use this camera. So that's my review. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're going to buy one, what you would use it for, because I really, really like this camera. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Ciao.